Back during the Brexit times, I always used to say one of the big things I think that will make a lot of people really appreciate us being when we were in the EU and wanting to rejoin again was the fact that trade deals in itself. If you look at politics outside of the EU, trade deals are big, big, big politics. These deals normally take between about 8 to 10 years to really talk about, to discuss before they go into place. Uh, now, as we often say, a week can be a long time in politics. 10 years in politics might as well be an eternity. But trade deals outside of the EU, outside of these other countries, have sunk political parties. There's a lot of people that would say that during the 2016 in America, Donald Trump going after Hillary Clinton for praising the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the Pacific Partnership, just we'll call it, just to keep it simple, because there's too many T's in that to pronounce. I can't remember how many T's there are, how many P's. But yeah, that was a what a lot of people said. He went open and after her for that, and was able to score a lot of points for her on that. So we have never really, at least in this country, since Brexit, experienced politics, or at least a sufficient backlash to the UK signing a trade deal, or the political backlash for the current government trying to sign a particular trade deal or something like that. Currently, still, that has not yet happened. However, I think we are starting now to see the realization that, this is going to become big politics again, just as it was prior to us joining the EU. Because it is the same for every other country out there that's not in the EU. These things always are big politics. They have sunk governments from time to time. Could these deals do this to other governments? Sometimes it hasn't even been the government that was responsible for signing those deals that ended up being the one that caught all the political flack for it. Well, now we are starting to see farmers more and more and more start to speak out about how bad the Australian and the New Zealand trade deals are for them. And all I'd like to say is, well, yeah, we talked about how bad they were back when they were being signed. Notably, of course, for the fact that, in particular, the Australian trade deal was done on a back of a piece of toilet paper. And yes, that was a real thing that happened. Go check out that video I did about that. That was a real thing that happened. So, before we get more into this and the backlash that is now starting to come from farmers about these trade deals, how are, let's say, the architects of Brexit responding? Guess what? Turns out Michael Gove, one of the architects for Brexit, has actually turned around and admitted, those trade deals, they weren't actually very good. Michael Gove championed those trade deals when he was in government. The mind boggles with the excuses we are going to see from some of these Brexiteers over the coming years. It's going to melt your brains. Trust me on that one. So before we get into what Michael Gove had to say about this and these trade deals, do, of course, please remember to click on the like, share, and, of course, the subscribe button down below. There is, of course, the bell icon as well. You can ring the bell to get notifications about when we drop a new video or when we go live. There is, of course, links down below, the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and, of course, as always, there's a YouTube membership button down below as well. And, of course, there is the Patreon QR code up there as well, which will take you straight to the Patreon page as well. So, As always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. This is absolutely fantastic. Don't forget to leave a comment down below as well. That helps with the algorithm so much, especially if you're using an ad blocker. Thank you very much if you do decide to leave a comment. And of course, as always, let's crack on with this because ooh, consequences are coming. They always said they would, but who knows in what strange and weird ways those consequences might turn out to be. Anyway, so this comes from the Yorkshire Post. Michael Gove admits that post-Brexit trade deals were bad for farmers. So, the freedom to sign trade agreements around the world was, of course, touted as one of the great Brexit benefits. However, when the Conservatives struck deals with the Australian and New Zealand governments back in 2021, farmers claimed that they were now being undercut in an agreement which had very little economic benefit to the UK. And yes, they absolutely were being undercut. The Australia one in particular is probably the most terrifying one indeed, because it reduces tariffs and costs for the Australian farmers, meaning that they will be able to send more and more and more stuff. And in Australia, in particular, meat and agriculture and beef in particular is a massive industry. And they will absolutely flood our market, disadvantaging our own farmers here. What was it, 15 years? And we are what, 2021? So what, 4 years into this agreement so far? Yeah, it's a ticking time bomb, and farmers know it. Farmers fully well know it. Not only that, but New Zealand as well with sheep and lamb. There's going to be so many problems in like literally a couple of years' time when these trade agreements really kick in. So back to this. Even former Environmental Secretary George Eustace said that the UK gave away far too much for too little in return, and these agreements were not a very good deal for Britain. At the Conservative Party conference, Tory grandee Gove, also a former Environmental Secretary, finally admitted that farmers were not protected. Everyone's only been saying that since those deals were talked about. Anyway, he said, I can confirm, I think that we negotiated poorly with Australia and New Zealand, but particularly with the Australia in defence of our farmers, he told the Conservative Environmental Network. In the anxiety now to secure trade deals, we did not think about the long term. Conservatives not thinking about the long term? Not horror. Oh, anyway, Brexit, he continued to say, was not principally, of course, about trade, and I think it was a mistake for people to regard Brexit's success on the basic number of trade deals that we could stack up. Brexit is ultimately about accountability and democratic accountability overall. I feel that there were too many anxious now as the government tried to secure those deals in order to actually show that Brexit was working. So Gove there fully admits, first and foremost, that those were not Brexit was never about trade. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of people who can cite quotes from Michael Gove that apparently Brexit was all about trade, but you still see the amorphous blob that Brexit always was. It was the biggest problem during the 2016 referendum. That if you pinned down a Brexiteer, let's say on trade or something else, Brexit could then morph into something else, just as Michael Gove has very masterfully done there. Because, it wasn't about trade at all. It was all about democratic accountability. Which, again, if someone had pressed Michael Gove on that, Brexit would have suddenly become and morphed into something else. Because that's what it was. Brexit could be morphed into anything to mean to anything to anyone. Didn't matter about that. Because you could confront someone on it being about trade or even sovereignty or anything like that, and it would just morph into something else. It was an amorphous blob made that way by people like Gove for the specific reason to try and win as many people as possible. Brexit could be about anything you wanted to any particular voter. And as a result, because they did that, Brexit itself at its core was hollow and meant nothing. Part of the problem we have today, where our current government, by Starmer, and I still say this now, should be given a lot of praise for his EU reset. It has done, I think, a lot of good work so far, and the sign we are seeing, yeah, it's great. Honestly, and I called that right. I've still maintained that. I called that 100% 10 right. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think, of course, down below about this. Post your favorite Michael Gove comment about Brexit being about trade. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.